Good morning, Australia. This is Chris Smith. It is Thursday already, the 30th of July. G'day, g'day. Good to have your company. I'm broadcasting live from the studios of Radio 2SM. That's 1269 in Sydney. And through the Super Radio network, which includes stations across New South Wales, Queensland, and also the Northern Territory. Thank you so much for joining us, and welcome to the Castle of Common Sense. To the top five, and I've got to say, patience is wearing thin in the White House. President Donald Trump has issued a very blunt warning to Iran after its failed missile attack on US forces in Jordan, saying, "We're going to beat the effing SHIT out of them, and they're going to get a beating." US Central Command says all incoming missiles were intercepted with no reported casualties. The US and Saudi Arabia have since carried out coordinated strikes on Iran-backed militia sites in eastern Iraq. The Saudi Arabian Defence Ministry said it does not seek escalation, but warned it would respond to any aggression, while Trump says nuclear talks with Iran will continue despite the escalation. Now, separately, Trump has softened his tone on China after years of accusing Beijing of election interference and calling the Communist Party a major threat. He recently suggested China is maybe a little bit different today, a shift that comes as he backs a deal to keep TikTok operating in the United States. Could this also mean that he backflips on what the United States will do if China tries to take hold of Taiwan? We will watch that space. One of America's leading Jewish organisations has urged Prime Minister Anthony Albanese to act on the recommendations of the Anti-Semitism Royal Commission, calling for tougher regulation of social media platforms and greater accountability for online hate. Now, why this comes at a time that is newsworthy is because new figures from the Anti-Defamation League show Australia has recorded the largest increase in anti-Semitic incidents of any major Jewish diaspora nation since the October 7 attacks. We're actually a world leader now. Anti-Semitic incidents in Australia have risen 246% since October 7, 2023. But Jonathan Greenblatt, the head of the US Anti-Defamation League, says Australia should consider stronger oversight of tech giants, including the possibility of an international watchdog for global platforms. Still on that Anti-Defamation League report, it also found anti-Semitism online has also surged by, would you believe, 839% since October 7. It's just dumbfounding to me that given what happened on October 7, it somehow gave the green light for all the Jewish haters to up their hate. Still can't work that out. One Nation leader, Pauline Hanson, is pushing for some of Australia's toughest ever counter-terrorism laws, unveiling a new bill aimed at stopping ISIS fighters from ever returning home. This is what government should be doing, not a minor party. Senator Hanson has written to every crossbench MP seeking support for the legislation, which would allow courts to block the return of foreign terrorist fighters, tighten bail laws for terror offences, strengthen passport cancellation powers, and make it a crime to help an ISIS fighter re-enter Australia. Hear, hear. She says the bill was prompted by concerns that Australian ISIS fighters, including Dr. Jihad Kamla, could eventually seek return from Iraqi prison. She says if current laws don't allow the government to stop them coming home, then Parliament needs to change the law. She is dead right. New Victorian Premier Ben Carroll says his planned Royal Commission into the state's big build will have exhaustive terms of reference, signalling it could investigate not only the CFMEU, but politicians, government departments and contractors involved in Victoria's major infrastructure projects. Now, that means probably Daniel Andrews and Jacinta Allen, along with former ministers, political staff and public servants. I bet that's going down like a champagne bottle at a funeral inside ALP headquarters. Ben Carroll is about to turn against some of the ALP's most esteemed. Now in sport, a new king of Australian sprint swimming we have, with Flynn Southam beating Kyle Chalmers for Commonwealth Games gold. The 21-year-old claimed his first major international individual title, leading from start to finish to clock 47.13 seconds and beat Chalmers by half a body length. It is the first time in a decade another Australian has beaten Chalmers in an international 100-metre freestyle race. So remember the name, Flynn Southam. We will be following his career in the pool, let me tell you. And in terms of the medal tally, Australia is on 102, Canada 39, England 54. But just in terms of gold, we have 48 gold, Canada has 14, England 12. Call the fight off. That is the state of play. Now, in the Castle of Common Sense, as you may know, we specialise in the talkback format here after it made its Australian debut right here on 2SM back in 1967. The tradition continues, and you are most invited to have your say this morning, 13 12 69. The earlier you get in, the better, on the guest list today. With Pauline Hanson devising this new legal framework to prevent ISIS fighters from returning home, how will it stand up? Former Federal Police Detective Superintendent David Craig will respond to the One Nation legislation. And I also want to get his comments on the government's argument that it cannot stop all the wives or all the fighters from returning, because I don't believe that for 1 second. I think the laws are there, it's just that the government is reticent to apply those laws. Now, the outstanding columnist and economist, Adam Crichton, he's on deck today. He'll discuss our new inflation number, the ridiculous taxpayer dollars going into global green schemes, yes, global schemes, and the Dr. Anthony Fauci hearings in Washington. Wow. Our suspicions have now been confirmed, even though Anthony Fauci has decided to call on the Fifth Amendment and not utter a word in front of the panel. Plus, the breakthrough in preventing Alzheimer's and dementia. We'll speak with one of the neuroscientists behind a set of new tests being launched today by the Health Minister. That and more on the program. The number's 13 12 69. This is Chris Smith on 2SM and the Super Radio Network. Well, the national broadcaster has hit a disgraceful new low with its mishandling of a shocking segment targeting one of Australia's most prominent women. Now, the skit itself was bad enough, and I mentioned it earlier on in the week on the program, but the way the ABC hierarchy has wiped its hands of all responsibility is next level shameful. So, on a recent episode of Race Around the World, a contestant's video broadcasted a graphically violent, sexually explicit and deeply disturbing fantasy about torturing mining magnate Gina Rinehart. This was not a slip of the tongue on live television. It passed through editorial cues, producers and managers. Yet, they still chose to broadcast a graphic description of sodomy and torture as prime time entertainment, as comedy. This is what you pay for on the ABC.
'Cause when the revolution comes, will you hide under your bed? Or will you know exactly how to shove a stick right up Gina Rinehart's butthole, stirring it round, mixing her guts up nice and smooth, making her into one big sausage roll to make something out of nothing?
It makes you sick to your stomach, doesn't it? If this level of vile, targeted degradation of a private citizen had been levelled at any other prominent Australian woman, the condemnation would be swift, absolute and probably career-ending. But because the target is Gina Rinehart, the ABC initially hid behind the shield of satire and refused to offer a public apology. If that doesn't deserve an apology, I hate to think whatever would. Only after relentless public backlash and the Federal Communications Minister, Annika Wells, labelling it as unacceptable, did the ABC move. The ABC has now referred the matter to their internal ombudsman. Oh, independent ombudsman, they say. But a bureaucratic internal referral is not enough. Where is the accountability? Where's the respect for the standards Australians expect from the national broadcaster? Let's look at the woman they're dehumanising here. Gina Rinehart is a citizen who puts immense wealth back into the fabric of our country. She's an extraordinary supporter of our Olympic, Paralympic and Commonwealth Games athletes, single-handedly funding the dreams of so many young Australians representing us on the world stage. Not bad. More than that, her philanthropic focus provides crucial support and modern accommodation for our veterans, the men and women who serve to protect our nation. But maybe that's it. Maybe that's it. She's too Australian for the ABC and their woke band of television producers. Maybe that's why Gina cops it so much and has copped it this time. She gives back to sport and veterans, two very proud aspects of Australian patriotic life. How pathetic. The national broadcaster receives over $1.2 billion in taxpayer funding every single year. We pay for this. It is time that model was destroyed. Let those who enjoy this kind of broadcasting pay for it themselves. Let's see how much money the ABC will have to play with then. As for the management, led by Chairman Kim Williams, what a disgraceful bunch of haters you all are. How do you even sleep at night, having refused to even offer an apology for the way you allowed things to be put to air? Forget the ABC Ombudsman. That'll get nowhere. The ABC owes Mrs. Rinehart and the Australian public a comprehensive and unreserved apology today. Let's take a break and get to your calls on 13 12 69 on this Thursday morning. Good to have your company. Straight to the open line board. Kathy, good morning.
Oh, hi, Chris. First time calling, so I'm a little bit nervous.
That's okay. Deep breaths. It's only you and I.
Yeah. Don't we have hate speech laws now? Because really, that vile comment on the ABC is very hateful.
It's an excellent thought. I thought we had hate speech laws at the federal and state level.
Well, exactly. If Pauline Hanson can get dragged to court for responding to a hateful comment about our country from someone who doesn't belong in this country, why isn't this surely comes under hate speech? It's vile. It's degrading, it's inciting violence, and it's certainly hateful.
But we've got the Communications Minister, Annika Wells, saying it's unacceptable. Is that all she could muster? Unacceptable, really?
Yes, exactly. And where are all these Labor feminists? Why aren't they screaming out about it?
Very true, Kathy. Well said. Thank you. Hope to hear from you again. Appreciate that. Craig is on the same subject. Morning, Craig.
Good morning, Chris. Kim Williams and Hugh Marks, you are both absolute disgraces and not fit to be chairman of the Australian Broadcasting Corporation or managing director.
Yeah.
I say that if you had any decency, you would issue an unreserved apology to Gina Rinehart this morning.
This is the ultimate crossing of the line. Oh, look, I've covered the ABC's mishaps and, lack of appreciation for standards and all that sort of stuff ad nauseum for decades and decades, and nothing surprises me, but this does. This does because morally they have a responsibility as a corporate citizen paid by the taxpayer to say sorry for saying something that hurt so much.
Annika Wells, where are your morals? Or like the Australian Party, you have no morals.
Well said, Craig. Thank you very much for that. Now, you may have been following this story late yesterday. The Darwin woman who's been charged over an alleged abuse of public office linked to a suspected $18 million NDIS fraud scheme. The reason I am raising this morning is you may have caught someone who worked in this particular department on the open line about 4 weeks ago, in the week before I went away. And this woman was telling us on air that the fraud related to the NDIS is also widespread within the NDIS, that is, within the public service. Now, I could only take her on face value, but this case is an exact example of what that woman was telling us on the open line 4 weeks ago. The Darwin woman, 39-year-old, was arrested by Northern Territory Police and the Federal Fraud Fusion Task Force and faces 5 charges, including allegedly using her government position to obtain NDIS information and direct vulnerable people to an NDI business, which is no problem. That's what she's paid to do. But the NDI business was owned by her and another man. Police allege the pair used their positions to access referrals and since 2019 claim more than $28 million in NDIS funding, with around $18 million considered suspicious. This is alleged corruption writ large. She is the second person charged in the investigation. The 47-year-old Darwin man, who allegedly is working with her, was charged earlier this year. The Department of Children and Families confirmed the woman had resigned from her role, saying it had strengthened conflict of interest processes following the allegations. I get back to that call that I remember only too well. Forget about the overnight businesses that have been formed who have become self-appointed experts in healthcare and disabilities. Forget about all of that and the dramas we've had with corruption related to those recipients. Forget about that. What about inside the NDIS itself? Lachlan's on the Sunshine Coast. Lachlan, speak to us.
G'day, mate. How you going?
Good, thank you.
That's good, mate. Just want to start off by saying I'm outraged. I was in Gladstone last night and I was just walking to go to dinner.
Yep.
And I happened to pass the Green Senator, her office, Senator Penny Ullman-Payne.
Never heard of her.
Me neither, mate, till last night. Look, I was walking past, said first things first, not saying anything more than this, all right? There was a pride flag, yeah, okay. Then there was a Palestinian flag.
Oh, she had an array of flags, did she?
Mate, all except...
the Australian flag.
The Australian flag, mate. I just don't understand it. Like, how can we be... us taxpayers be paying her wage and she not display the flag of which country she is representing? I think it's disgusting.
Well, of course it is. She's acting like an activist, not like a politician that should be paid to represent the area, that is, represent the myriad of people who come under one flag only.
No, you're 100% right, mate. And I bleed Australian, mate. I love this country. Family's been here since the Second Fleet, mate. And to see someone that's actually in a senator position not wanting to represent our own country and values, mate, it's an absolute disgrace. What are we supposed to be doing about this? Like, what do the Gladstone people think about this? They're the ones who voted her in. Did they know that she was going to be like this?
So she's flying the Palestinian flag, which is one thing. The second thing, she's flying the rainbow flag. What other flags is she flying?
The Indigenous and Torres Strait Islander flag as well, mate.
So 4 flags, but she couldn't find any room outside her office for the Australian flag?
No, not at all. It's a disgrace.
Her name is Senator Penny Ullman-Payne. What a pain she is.
Couldn't agree more, mate. It's a disgrace. There's got to be something done about this, mate. There's got to be an investigation. I don't know. This is just not right.
Yeah.
It's not right.
I'm hearing you. Green Senator for Queensland. I hope she's treated at the next federal election, when she comes up for election, the way she should be, which is to be thrown out of office because she's not representing Australia nor Australians. She's representing these activist groups that she finds should take priority over Australia. It's just disgusting.
Yep, keep your overseas problems over there. We don't want the overseas problems here, mate. This country, it's great. We're starting to see a lot of stuff come in that's starting to ruin the country. Look at Bondi last year, for example, and these Dr. Jihad. Mate, I bet you he'll come under the radar. They won't even say anything about it on the media, but he'll come back.
And it's no coincidence that Pauline Hanson, who's on top of most of the polls right now, is marching forward trying to prevent the likes of Dr. Jihad from coming back into the country, while the rest of the mainstream political parties are off on their own ideological tangents, Lachlan.
Yeah, you're exactly right. Like, you've got investigations into parties for carry-ons, and then the only thing they're trying to pick on One Nation about is sit down.
Yeah, exactly. They're obsessed with Barnaby Joyce telling his working dog to sit down. it's just off. No wonder Pauline Hanson is way out in front right now. Lachlan, thank you very much for your call.
Thanks, mate. Love your work. Keep it up.
Thank you very much. I love your work. You've done the work for us today. Don't forget that name. This is the name that you need to make sure that if you're in Queensland, this person never sees public office again. Senator Penny Allman-Payne, who is an absolute pain. We've gone straight to 7:30 this morning for our power report, courtesy of the Australian Energy Market Operator. At 7:30 this morning, we were getting 10% of the power from batteries around the nation. We're also getting 8% from gas, 0% from liquid fuel, 13% from hydro, 0% from solar, 6% from wind, and 63% from our black and brown coal. 63%. You wouldn't have been able to turn your toaster or your kettle on this morning if it weren't for coal. But I've got to mention this while we talk about power and we talk about this ridiculous transition to renewables. Australia's major UN climate summit is struggling to attract world leaders, we read today, despite more than $150 million of your money being spent preparing for the event in Fiji. Climate change zealot Chris Bowen is reportedly yet to secure any heads of government from outside the Pacific for his pre-COP summit in Fiji in October, with travel distances and packed international schedules reportedly behind the lack of interest. You see, if Chris Bowen was my staff member, before I gave him a cheque for $150 million, he would have to prove to me he could gather heads of government before I'd hand that money out. But not when it comes to your money. That's not the way government works. You get the money first before you can prove that you've got a decent event to hold. Now, the event is designed to help shape negotiations, whatever that means, ahead of the main COP31 climate conference in Turkey. The coalition has seized on the reports, understandably, with Angus Taylor, the opposition leader, claiming taxpayers are paying for an empty room, while energy spokesman Dan Tehan says the government is wasting public money on a conference no one wants to come to. Why would you? They have trouble enough turning up to the main COP conference. Why would you go to a pre-COP conference? Chris Bowen insists the summit remains vital for bringing global attention to the Pacific and helping shape future climate negotiations. If you believe that, you believe in fairies at the bottom of the garden. Good morning, Diane Coveney-Garland.
Good morning, Chris. Thank you. A teenage boy is one of 3 people who died in a fire in Sydney's southwest. A new approach to mental health emergencies in New South Wales, and a Broncos premiership star to retire. We'll have those stories and more at the top of the hour.
Thank you very much for that. We'll be listening then. Just before I get to Adam Crichton, getting back to Lachlan's outing of the Green Senator in Gladstone, with all her array of flags, but no space for an Australian flag, and yet she's an Australian senator. Charlie, go ahead.
Yeah, g'day, mate. How you doing?
Good, thank you.
Okay, I was scanning back, looking at, we're talking about renewables, so I decided to go back and dig up some old interviews that I could find, what they were saying about 10 years ago, how we got here, and it's very interesting. But what was really interesting is every single politician, every single councillor, MP, anyone who was spoken about, one flag, the Australian flag, which actually represents every other flag that's under this nation.
Yeah. And yet we fly these other flags almost like as if they're the antithesis of Australia. In other words, let's try and pitch division in our community by eradicating the Australian flag from our normal flying of flags. It's not on.
That's right. And I will say this, there is pretty good backlash because at the moment, for example, on my social media, every couple of days there's a local councillor who's going to a school, and if they are holding up any other flag, which they usually do, if it's not the Australian flag, There are more people coming up saying, what are you thinking? Put up the Australian flag, not this one. So we are, but they're not doing it.
Yeah, the inner city elites are the ones controlling this little mini narrative, but they are in the minority. They're not in the majority, Charlie. Thankfully. Thank you. Drew, go right ahead.
Yeah, is this me?
It is you. If you're Drew, it's you.
Yeah, mate. I was just ringing up that these people should be charged with treason against the Australian people.
I wouldn't object to that.
Like, are they actually working for the Australian people?
Yeah, you're paying for them. You're paying for that Green senator to represent Queensland.
That's right. You know, they're not flying the Australian flag, so who the bloody hell are they working for?
Yeah, who are they working for surreptitiously? Drew, you make a very, very good point. Thank you. He's the chief economist and a senior fellow with the Institute of Public Affairs, columnist with the Australian newspaper, Adam Crichton. Welcome to the program once again.
Good morning, Chris. Great to be here.
I've got to start in Washington because I've been doing a little bit of fossicking through some of the tapes that I've been hearing over the last 3 days. This week's Senate hearings I'm referring to,
yes,
with Dr. Anthony Fauci in the hot seat. They have been incredibly revealing. His diaries have showed how much he loved the attention during COVID as he started writing down all his appearances and how much he was focused on. He tried to avoid criticism of the true cause of COVID-19, which was Fauci's own research inside the Wuhan lab, and he was very upset with Shari Markson, who wrote for The Australian, exposing Fauci on all of this. And then today, he decided to plead the fifth, and have a listen as this went on 111 times.
Well, nothing says honesty like taking the fifth, huh, Doc? Let's try something. What day of the week is it today?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
What color tie are you wearing?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
What color's the carpet in front of you?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Let's just get one thing straight. You don't have any rights under the Fifth Amendment because you've been pardoned, as you very well know. As the Supreme Court has been clear for a century and more, Brown versus Walker, 1896, when he has been pardoned, he may not stand upon his privilege. You know that. Your lawyers sitting behind you now shifting nervously in their chairs, they know it. This isn't about the Constitution. This isn't about the law. This is about contempt. Contempt for this body and contempt for the American people. But I think I know why you're doing it. It's because you don't want to answer questions. It's because you did all kinds of terrible things. It's because during the pandemic you got rich, didn't you? You got rich while people were dying, hundreds of thousands of Americans, over 1 million in the end, and you were getting rich. And not only were you doing that, you were using federal employees with taxpayer money to apply for and solicit cash prizes for you personally, cash prizes totaling over $1 million. You did all of that during the pandemic, didn't you? That's a question.
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Prosecuting Fauci there was Republican Josh Hawley. Adam, before he decided to plead the fifth, I tell you what, the exposure of his diaries has solved many of our suspicions.
Yeah, look, it certainly has. I was shocked at the 1,000 pages of diaries. I mean, the vanity, as you referred to, the self-obsession, the very careful noting of every media appearance and every compliment toward him was, I mean, it struck me as particularly strange as someone who's known a lot of senior bureaucrats in their life. They tend not to be people who are obsessed with fame, and yet he was a career bureaucrat scientist of great power. And he was clearly obsessed with being a celebrity. So I suppose that's the top line. But the more fundamental revelation was that his private views were far closer to those of the critics of both lockdowns and the critics of the supposed natural source of the virus than we were all led to believe at the time. And, you know, people like me, people like Shari Markson, who are very critical of various aspects of the official narrative were slammed repeatedly by the consensus, and yet he in private would often would often agree that there was a lot of doubt there. And as it all turned out in the end, we were right and he was wrong. He has been incredibly destructive human being. You just look at Melbourne and Sydney. I mean, they followed the lockdown narrative at enormous economic cost, and it all ultimately came from this man who was pushing it in the US and yet privately saying in his diaries that, there wasn't much scientific evidence actually for that.
But he's the sort of guy putting himself through what he just put himself through and then taking the fifth so arrogantly, who couldn't walk down any main street of any city or town in the United States of America.
No, on a grand scale, it's kind of a Dan Andrews reversal of public opinion. I mean, you're exactly right. He was adored, and I think even if he's not ultimately convicted and ends up in jail, he's going to have trouble travelling outside for the rest of his life because people will abuse him. Rightly so, in my view. It was a very interesting precedent that Senator Josh Hawley said. I hadn't heard of that, but maybe, it certainly will. This is going to drag on in the courts of the Congress for a very long time.
Yeah.
Because he really is holding the Congress there with contempt. I mean, not even answering the colour of the carpet and so forth. That just seems excessive to me, and he's not, he's not trying to cooperate at all. So we'll see what happens. But look, I think his public reputation and the damage he's caused is now thankfully well known, and his reputation is mud.
Yeah, and as we've now had revealed through those diaries, we suffered right around the world because of his stance on these issues. Just appalling. All right. The Australian public may not be able to know how much of their money the government is spending on the ridiculous renewable transition because, after all, we're only humans. But we are reminded today, Adam, of how much is regularly wasted. We learned this morning that Chris Bowen's pre-COP event in Fiji will be a frost because it's being snubbed by world leaders, $150 million down the drain. And then this Labor charity named the Smart Energy Council has spent almost $500,000 on solar studies in Bangladesh and China. We are being had.
No, there's so many aspects of this story that are just so bad. I mean, firstly, the corruption, as you point out, this supposed independent think tank, which has charity status, so therefore tax-deductible donations to it. The Smart Energy Council has been donating to the Labor Party, and of course, getting these so-called contracts from the federal government to do absurd studies into, as you say, solar and wind power in Bangladesh, one of the poorest countries in the world, one of the smallest countries in the world in terms of density, so they barely have any room for wind and solar anyway. I mean, they hardly have any of it now. So it's extremely poor, just a ridiculous way. As for the pre-COP nonsense in Fiji that you mentioned, I mean, the COP is bad enough, and now there's another pre-COP event which no world leaders are going to because the Australian government, Chris Bowen's written to all prime ministers and presidents and invited. Not one of them has said that they would come. And indeed, in their defence, Anthony Albanese hasn't even been to any of these silly COP events himself anyway. So it's just the delusions of grandeur of Chris Bowen and the waste. We're spending millions of dollars in Fiji on five-star accommodation for international bureaucrats to come to this pre-COP nonsense. The whole thing's costing Australia $150 million, and it seems like nothing's actually going to be agreed at this year's COP because, as we all know, from net zero, and everyone's trying to do it without others noticing. But that's the economic and scientific reality. And so, my forecast is these COPs in even 5 years won't exist anymore.
If Chris Bowen was the CEO of a corporation, the shareholders would be getting at the AGM and demanding he hand back the $150 million.
Yes, gosh, yeah. The share price would be very low indeed if the Australian government was some sort of company. The waste is just spectacular.
Yeah.
The state governments too, kind of arguably even worse. So it's very sad to see this. And so, but sadly, Chris, not enough people listen to your show. I mean, I know you've got great ratings, but people still vote for this nonsense. In large numbers, people vote for governments that do this, and that really upsets me.
It does me too. The union movement has been crowing about the Prime Minister's special gift to them at the ALP National Conference last week, which was this Fair Work Court. The only problem is the true statistics from the federal court that deal with these issues show that there are no lengthy delays warranting another new giant work claim court, Adam.
Yeah, no, it's completely ridiculous. I mean, I can't believe this is a proposal, and it just goes to show how beholden the federal government is to the far left factions of the Labor Party. I mean, we already have this thing in Australia called a Fair Work Commission, which is a very powerful, I mean, it's not technically a court, but it's a very powerful tribunal. It's got huge influence over what especially large companies can and can't do with their staff. Very few countries in the world have anything like it. So we already have an extremely interventionist system. And now this proposal for a special court, which of course would be extremely expensive because you'd have to have all these new judges on massive salaries and staff, etc. But it's not just the cost; it's the more interfering with the running of businesses by judges and bureaucrats. It's just, I mean, it's crazy. I don't know why any large foreign multinational would bring their workforce here, unless they had to for some reason. It's just crazy. The wages are so high now, often by fiat. I mean, just recently, Fair Work Commission said the minimum wage for Uber drivers was going to be $31.80. I mean, that's, most of them they're not even permanent residents, let alone citizens. And here's the this government agency basically levying a tax on Australians to pay these huge salaries, much of which is sent home.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's just obscene. Anyway, that's probably another topic, but still, it just gets me worked up.
To a piece you wrote this week about superannuation and our kids, so much for giving the next generation a hand up, which is apparently what the budget was all about. The days of having your resources in super and having trust in super are probably over, right?
Yeah, look, I think so. I mean, I've kind of banged on about super for many, many years. I'm kind of one of these strange people that doesn't like compulsory super and thinks people should choose how to, whether to save or spend their own money. But look, this study I talked about was just interesting. It said that the returns in the share market, the property market, have been steadily falling basically for 150 years. And the high point was actually it wasn't the boomers, it was their parents and grandparents. If they had invested in the share market back then and property, they would have done even better than the boomers did. So the conclusion is that young people now starting out, they're going to be forced to not have 12% of their wage and salary, which of course makes renting and buying a home harder. Yep. And then the study was suggesting the returns on their super aren't probably going to be that great if history is any judge. So look, it was a pretty pessimistic article. So I hope it's wrong. But I think the bigger concern is, something John Hurst, the late great Australian historian and friend of mine, said to me at the end. He said, towards the end of his life, he wasn't really a fan of compulsory super either. And he said, Adam, when there's a war or when there's a major crisis, what's going to happen with all those trillions of dollars in super, which are all, legally distinct and have had beneficial taxation, is they'll be nationalised. Yes. And it'll all be taken by the government. Yep. In a wartime. So I don't know. I don't mean to scare people, but I'm just saying it is, the government will always be able to say that pool of money has had beneficial treatment and therefore the government has some claim to it, which is pretty scary.
As Albo says, it's a national asset. You're dead right. You're dead right. Hey, listen, just very quickly, question without notice, what do you make of yesterday's drop in inflation? I get the feeling it's a false dawn because it's been overly impacted by the government's temporary propping up of petrol prices and flattening of the housing market.
Yeah, that's exactly right. This is based on June when those things fell. Let's just wait until we see the July figures and the August figures soon. It's still ridiculously high. It's almost 4%, the highest in the Western world. And it really, it really upsets me. People just don't realise how serious a 4% inflation rate is for people on ordinary incomes when their purchasing power of their, small wages already. They're shrinking by 4% every year. I mean, they're not getting pay rises, right? In 3 years, it's gone down by 12% in value. It's a very, very serious problem. And then the Reserve Bank doesn't even seem to care. They're going to leave interest rates where they are and not do much. So look, it's all a bit depressing to me. We have a serious inflation problem in Australia, and the positive spin that was put on these numbers yesterday is just ridiculous to me.
Yeah, excellent analysis on all of those topics, Adam. Thank you very much for your time.
Thanks, Chris. No problem.
Good on you. Senior Fellow and Chief Economist with the Institute of Public Affairs, Adam Crichton. Nick's in beautiful Terrigal. Go ahead, Nick.
Oh, thanks for taking my call, Chris. I've been trying to get you for a couple of days now, but you're a hard man to get on to. That's understandable. Look, I've really got an issue with this Gina Rinehart business. For me, it's been basically the icing on the cake. It's just so bad that we've got to that stage where we can insult people on air using our own ABC, which is supposed to be independent in a sense, shouldn't be taking sides. and they can justify it by saying it's some form of art.
Well, they say it's a form of satire. It's gone beyond satire into disreputable, disgraceful, almost ribald disrespect.
I think exactly the same as what you've just said, right? And I got to the point where I sent a email to our local member.
Good.
And he sent a reply to say he's going to look into it and pass it on to the minister. In the end, the way I feel about it, if I don't see something done personally, I will not be voting for any parties that are involved at the moment. So in other words, I look at Labor, I look at the Greens, I look at the Teals, and I think, what are they actually doing? They're doing nothing. And they're letting the ABC get away with all this nonsense.
Yeah, it's crossed the line of decency by a long way, and it is the straw that broke the camel's back in terms of our trust and faith in the ABC. I am on your page, Nick. Couldn't agree with you more.
Okay, 2 or 3 weeks back, they basically did the same to Pauline Hanson in Meet the Press.
Yeah, they did. I've got to leave it there. I've got to get to a network break, but you've had your say and you've said it perfectly. I can't even add to it. Well said. And I think a lot of Australians feel the same. This is the straw that broke the ABC's back. A little bit of breaking news to begin our second hour of the program. Luke Gosling, the Australian Labor Party member for the seat of Solomon in the Northern Territory, has been arrested. And apparently he's going to be charged with assault. This is the ALP member for Solomon in the Northern Territory. He has been a member of Solomon since 2016. He's been around a while. We'll follow any development in that case and try and get some details for you as the morning wears on. A stack of callers to get to. We'll go as quick as we can. And let's hear what you've got to say. A lot of people want to keep referring to what Annika Wells said about Gina Rinehart and that skit. I'll get to that in just a second. But Marie has been waiting patiently online. Go ahead, Marie.
Thank you. It's lovely to talk to someone with a backbone. First of all, may I ask a question and follow on with a couple of comments?
Sure.
Please, Chris. What's the role of the Governor-General? Intervene when things aren't working, or does he just get well paid and say nothing and stay there? Or is it just me thinking?
Well, they sign bills passed by the Parliament, that I do know, and they appoint technically the Prime Minister, ministers, federal judges, all that sort of stuff. And if the government can't operate and pass a budget on 2 occasions, as we learnt in 1975, the Governor-General can intervene and sack the government.
And secondly, Chris, a former Speaker of the House made a comment and said that whilst Anthony was in Parliament for 20 years, never once at any point in time did he indicate that which he would do if he became the Prime Minister. Well, now he is our Prime Minister. And most Labor politicians, all of them, Liberal or Labor, we pulled together once when our country was in trouble. He did one thing when he became the Prime Minister, one thing that stood out that he'd never done before, that he must have been waiting for. He travelled the world non-stop. And whilst he was doing that, he opened the gates and anyone could come in. And he threw the yes-no vote to the people, let them work it out. Well, he's got all these advisors. When he puts his hand on his heart and says, my word is my bond, don't they have a right to say, Anthony, you've made a mistake? Those brides, they're already back, Anthony. You said they weren't coming back. What is their role? Isn't it to advise our Prime Minister?
Yeah, I'd love to know what happened behind closed doors when the Prime Minister stumbles, when the Prime Minister makes an error, when the Prime Minister lies. I wonder how that culture operates. Do they, trip him up and tell him critically what he's done wrong and how he should amend it, or are they just a bunch of sycophants, Marie?
Chris, I've never known my country to be in so much tension and so much stress Our Aboriginals fought in the First World Wars too, and then we were invaded in 1942, the Japanese, and only for American. I mean, we had the hell bombed out of Catherine Bruce Darwin, and our ships blown up, and America was nearby. They came to help us, otherwise we wouldn't be speaking English today. If ever there was a time to collectively stand up, it's not all the people that are coming in. Pauline didn't mean that, but if you've got people coming into your country and don't appreciate your country, why they've come here for a better way of life, don't want to speak the language, want their own parliament, what's the role of the Prime Minister and the people? It's your callers that are talking about the things that matter. Maybe it's your compulsory listening in Parliament.
Marie, well said. You've raised so many things that are problematic at the moment. Thank you very much for your call. I want to get to Ben in the Hunter. You want to talk about Gina Rinehart and that skit, Ben?
Yes, I do. I think everyone's focusing on the ABC and how terrible and disgusting that segment was. I think we should basically have a look at some of the good that Gina is doing. For example, it's the largest gold medal and medal haul ever for Australia at the Commonwealth Games. And Gina's donating for gold medals $20,000 to the winner, silver medals $15,000, and bronze medals $10,000.
And what we learnt at the last Olympic Games was that although the Olympians were told not to mention Gina Rinehart, which I think is gross, some of them mentioned in small interviews after the Games that if it weren't for Gina's contribution to their training and propping up their lifestyle at the time, they wouldn't have even competed at the Olympic Games.
That's exactly right. Exactly right. So kudos and congratulations to Gina.
Yeah, well said, Ben. Thank you very much for that. The other thing about this whole matter, and I want to play and illustrate what I'm saying by playing some audio here. This is Annika Wells. As I said last hour, she couldn't even muster a critical inflection or a tone that might have been, punishing of the ABC, which she should have done as Communications Minister. Matter of fact, she tried to avoid any kind of criticism of the ABC, which I found to be hopeless and inept. Have a listen to Annika Wells when she was asked question after question about why the ABC hasn't apologised.
Look, my personal view is it's unacceptable. Like any Australian, there's stuff I see on TV that I don't agree with. As the Minister for Communications, I respect the editorial independence of the ABC, but I understand they have now referred it to the Ombudsman. I think that was the right thing to do.
Should the ABC apologise?
The ABC should have referred it to the Ombudsman. That's what they've done.
But Gina Rinehart's calling for an apology. Do you think it's something that they should be apologising for while also referring it to the Ombudsman?
Look, as the Minister for Communications, like as the Minister for Sport, to be honest, if I spent all my time weighing in day to day on the scandals and outrages, valid or not, in both sport and communications, I wouldn't have time to do anything substantive. So, like I said, in this case, the ABC has referred to the Ombudsman. I think that was a helpful and righteous thing to do.
With regard to gendered and inflammatory language, is it not hypocritical for Labor figures to come out and condemn the Ditch the Witch campaign against Julia Gillard and Jacinta Allen, but not actively be condemning this sort of content towards Gina Rinehart and the ABC?
I think the nuance here as the Minister for Communications is that I, as the Labor Minister for Communications, respect the editorial independence of the ABC. They have a board, they have a chair, they have a process for where these things reach public ire. I appreciate the fact they have now referred it to the Ombudsman for that to play out.
You don't respect anything or anyone when they cross the line as grossly as the ABC did with this skit. And what, she doesn't have the brain space to think about the scandals and issues that are related to her portfolio? Well, don't give her a portfolio. She's not up to being a minister. She doesn't have the brain space to work out whether there should be an apology or not. What a gutless response that was. Max, go ahead.
Hey, Chris, you've just wrecked my morning replaying that bloody interview. I almost threw something at the TV when I saw it live. Now I've just about thrown my phone. I mean, that is the worst, pathetic Holly speak worm and squirm that I've ever heard. And why? She's not going to be sued for libel.
No. What's she worried about? What, the lovies in the ABC turning against her next time she gets an interview?
Oh, mate, I'm appalled that we've got such idiots running the country, you know. And the other thing that gets up my nose is, Gina Rinehart is a conservative, so the left, they just love anything that happens to a conservative. Like if it was on the other foot, I mean, and this has been said 100 times. I mean, can you imagine the outroar? Just as an example, like nothing to do with this, but when
imagine if a similar skit was done about Penny Wong and the same kind of sodomy illusion mentioned in a skit about her. Imagine.
Oh, mate, the sky would fall in. You know, like they get away with murder. Like what I was going to say was Bronwyn Bishop. Yeah, she was in a heap of trouble over a $5,000 helicopter flight. Barry O'Farrell, a bottle of wine. He had to bloody resign. Now, look at the things that the left are doing now that they just allowed to get away with it. I mean, what's wrong with our opposition? You know, and the media, they should be jumping all over this sort of stuff.
They show their bias terribly. Matt, thank you very much for that. Tony, go ahead.
Good day, Chris. Yeah, my question is, they've referred that to the Ombudsman. What's the Ombudsman going to do?
Well, it's not the Ombudsman, not a state Ombudsman or the Commonwealth Ombudsman. It's the ABC Ombudsman. He's probably got an office right next to the office that put this to air.
Yeah. And the disappointing thing was I didn't mind, I can't think of her name, the one that used to do the 7:30 report, and she was one of the judges, and she went, oh, yeah, well, you changed this, but, you know, there was no condemnation of...
Oh, Lee Sales.
Yeah. I was very disappointed with her. I didn't mind her earlier on, but she's just, oh, well, I can't say it on here.
You've said enough, Tony. You've nailed it. Mary on the Sunshine Coast. Hi, Mary.
Oh, hello, Chris. I'm sick in the stomach. Upset. Do you know what the insurance company did? The biggest insurance company in Queensland did to the pensioners?
Tell me.
They put our insurance up. Mine was $1,200 something last year. They put it up to $1,800, 50%.
This is your insurance premium.
Yes, and I haven't made a claim with them. We got no storms, we got no cyclones, we got nothing, and they've done this to the pensioners. We've got no money to hardly scrape. I've got no money I can pay it, but I've got no money to bury myself with. What are they doing to people?
Yeah, they're doing that. They're taking more blood out of the stone that exists. That's what they're doing. It's way over the top. The cost of living is killing people, and it's killing our mentality as well. You are actually crushed by this, aren't you?
Yes, it's the biggest. I won't name them. They're the biggest company in Queensland. I've never seen it. I rang her in the Philippines, and she was a lovely lady, and she got it down by $200. She said if you drop it by $130,000, the insurance price on your house. She brought it down to 400 and something thousand. I said, well, you'll have to, because I expected maybe 1,200 to 1,500, but not 1,800.
I'm hearing you. I've got no answers for you, Mary. I've got no answers except people like you are now deciding not to be insured, and that, of course, has this perpetual risk of coming undone completely if your house ends up in a fire, etc., or in a natural disaster. There's no way out.
I've been off the drink, you know, and now I want to go and get drunk.
Yes, I bet you do. Hang in there, Mary. Hang in there. Focus on the positive. Leave the negative to one side if you can.
Thanks, Chris.
Good on you, Mary. Thank you very much. Must take a break. I want to focus a little bit more on what Pauline Hanson is suggesting to keep out these ISIS fighters, which I think is one of the top priorities in the community. Based on the calls that I get, especially since I've been back from that break, people are concerned about this. They don't see this as fair or justifiable. So Pauline Hanson is running with it. And the rest of them are trying to find ways in which it can't work. How about you take the glass half full approach like Pauline Hanson is and stop your glass half empty approach?
Oh,
Well, the federal government says its hands are tied when it comes to stopping ISIS-linked Australians from returning home. We heard it through the ISIS wives saga. We're now hearing it through the saga related to fighters linked to ISIS who are in Iraq at the moment. But questions are now being raised about whether there is more it could be doing under existing laws. So much so that One Nation leader Pauline Hanson has now unveiled her own plan for a new bill aimed at blocking the return of ISIS-linked individuals, strengthening terror bail laws and giving the government more power to cancel passports. A man who's been unpacking the legal commitments, examining the current framework and following these cases closely is former federal AFP Detective Superintendent David Craig. He's on the line now. David, thank you very much for your time this morning.
No worries. Nice worries, Chris.
What was your reaction when you heard today that Pauline Hanson had come up with a bill and put her, front foot forward on this issue?
Well, it's nice to see someone doing it because it's not happening with the current federal government. They're certainly sitting on their hands and they are not testing the waters to protect our country.
OK, let's get back to her bill in just a second. The government's position is that it is bound by existing laws and legal advice when making these decisions. Are there limitations real, or are there other ways to get around them to ensure that these culpable people don't return to Australia?
Okay, it's very simple, Chris. The Tony Burke is saying that the High Court, that there could be some constitutional challenge. Now, there's only two relevant cases there that constitutional challenges have been made, and that was in relation to stripping citizenship, not about temporary exclusion orders. Uh-huh. So there's not a precedence in the High Court. The only problem with the current temporary exclusion order framework is that Tony Burke isn't using it. It is
so it's there to be used
applicable.
And he's not using it.
That's right. Yeah. It is absolutely applicable. You can imagine, this is designed to protect Australians from dangerous people coming back to Australia and so if they do have to come back, they come back under our conditions and our control. If this legislation doesn't work in this situation with 13 terrorist fighters, then the legislation is completely incompetent and they need to recall Parliament and make changes immediately. They can do that.
David Littleproud said this morning on Sky that there would have to be a change in the Constitution which requires a referendum for any kind of blocking of Australians coming back into Australia.
That may be the case. Look, I'm not a constitutional lawyer, Chris. That might actually be the case, but I'm confident a referendum would reach the threshold without any doubt. But before we even get to that, there's plenty of measures like these temporary exclusion orders that I mentioned before. They can keep these people out for 2 years while we assess the threat, get the prosecutions ready, put community safety plans in place, and then let's get to a referendum. Otherwise, let's quickly get the Parliament together, make the changes, take the fight to the High Court if we have to, and get the referendum done in 12 months' time.
See, the other option here is, let's think outside the square, and I've got to give credit to Mark Latham, the MLC in New South Wales. He mentioned to me, he said, we detain people who come into this country allegedly illegally and we put them in Christmas Island, and then we go through a process whereby they have access to various legal frameworks and we can assess their applicable application to stay in Australia. Why couldn't we do exactly that on Christmas Island with those who want to return and we suspect are dangerous?
Well, it's exactly right. It's a real disparity, isn't it? We've got people that are we suspect are illegal arrivals, and I think they should be detained until everything is known about them, and then probably deported. But when it comes to ISIS people, we've got people suspected of some of the worst crimes. These are world standard crimes of genocide, and slavery, and terrorism. So our government is just sitting back and not using these tools. They've just become really quiet, Chris.
And what about our spy agencies? You see, we've heard Tony Burke in reference to the ISIS wives say, well, my advice from ASIO is that they are not a danger to the public. And yet 5 minutes after they return to Australia, they're charged with slavery. And what?
Yeah.
These are incredibly dangerous crimes that they have been associated with, if not culpable of, and that's not too dangerous to say you can't come back in.
I know. And Chris, you may recall that one of the ISIS brides, or these ISIS women, was subject of a temporary control exclusion order. What the hell did she do if these other ones with crimes against humanity can come into our country?
Spot on. How bad was she?
I know, it's just outrageous. We fought, our ancestors have fought very hard to keep our borders safe from invasion of foreign states, and now we're allowing foreign fighters who are completely against democracy and Australian way of life back into Australia. We have got ISIS brides now that are walking the streets in Australia, and I'm pretty confident they'll be in government-supplied housing on government benefits.
Which is why the government won't tell us, because you're right. The cynic in me says this is all about the Labor government not wanting to upset their constituents in southwestern Sydney seats and various seats in Melbourne and have an Islamic kind of culture turn against the government because they vote Labor. Am I being too cynical?
I think that is the only reason that I can see, Chris. And look, I'm not aligned to a political party, right? I'm all about Australia and I'm about justice.
Yeah.
And there can be no other explanation in my mind, because these are very dangerous people. And not just the people, Chris. It's like Dr. Jihad and these other 12 mates of his, if they come back here, the danger isn't just what they may do, it's what they're going to incite to the next Australians. Because these are war heroes. Think of Ben Roberts-Smith. These are the Ben Roberts-Smiths for these young Islamic juveniles that will grow up to be Australia's next wave of terrorists. And I'm sort of talking a wave of terrorists.
Pauline Hanson's bill proposes stronger passport powers, tougher bail laws for terrorism offences, and new exclusion orders for foreign terrorist fighters. That would be welcome, would it not?
100%. Now, I haven't looked in detail with it, Chris, because it only came out yesterday. I want to go through the fine print and everything, but as a concept from the reading I've done so far, it's all legitimate. And yes, I support it 100%. If there's a constitutional issue, let's take it to the High Court. And if the High Court says there's something wrong with it, let's change the law so the High Court can't.
Yeah, it's too important not to. It's too important not to.
Yeah, this is national security, Chris. You know, this should be well beyond the amount of votes that Labor want in the next election. This is about protecting our borders and our people. Yeah. It's just beyond politics.
Now, you have an avenue to take questions from some of our listeners if they want to take this further, and you can do that through Instagram, is that right?
Yeah, that's right. I've got a fairly active Instagram account. I can't get to everybody, but I think a lot of Australians are concerned about this, and they just need to understand what the hell is going on and what does it actually mean. So, I mean, I go on Sky with Peter Credlin and Shari, and I have my Instagram account, and that's probably the best the best platforms I have. My Instagram is just David Craig AFP, and if people want to send questions or have comments, just use my Instagram handle, David Craig AFP. Pretty simple.
Okay.
I'm happy to help.
Thank you so much for your analysis on a very important topic. Thank you for your time.
No worries, Chris.
Okay.
See you, mate.
The former federal Australian police officer, Detective Superintendent David Craig, look, the laws are there now, as he rightly points out, and to use the definition of what's dangerous and what's not, and to put that onus on ASIO and then use that to say, we can't issue a temporary exclusion order, it's a terrible cop-out. They don't want to fight with the Islamic community. That's what this is about. They don't want to fight because they are rusted-on Labor Party voters. And so they will be as loose and as weak as they possibly can, and aren't they showing it? Diane, what's happening on the news front?
Thank you, Chris. A company could face up to $54 million in fines after failing to remove alleged pro-terror material from a messaging platform. Northern Territory politician Luke Gosling arrested, and Sydney FC went down to Tottenham Hotspur on penalties last night at Allianz Stadium. We'll have those stories and more at the top of the hour.
Good on you. Well done to Sydney FC. Only on penalties. That was a good performance against Tottenham Hotspur. Now, Diane mentioned about terror content and what Julie Inman-Grant announced earlier today. I will get across that in a little bit more detail for you. I haven't heard Julie Inman-Grant address the content of terror on social media since she took that position. And it's good that she's got her attention on it, because I think she's censoring far too much, getting in the way of stuff that is meaningless and doesn't have the same danger associated with it like terror posting does. And she's also saying that there are social media sites that are actually organising terror attacks, which is horrific. We'll get to Hilary Castle, who was at that press conference in a short time. Let's go back to the open line. Simon has been waiting patiently online. Simon, a very busy day on the open line. I'm sorry.
That's fine, Chris.
Go right ahead.
I subscribe to The Australian. I don't read it that much, but I think it's well worth it. Just reading an article on Angus Taylor life when his mother had 4 boys and she died early of cancer. I think she was 48. How it really, he had a father as well, but how it really rocked his life. And not long after that, he must have got on the grog a bit and fell off a balcony and broke his back and come back. It was a really sort of story that I don't think you should really, personal life should really spurt it out with politics, but in a case like that, it's sort of who he resilience he got from it. And
but add to that the fact that he's been an incredibly successful businessman, and that's got to augur well for anyone who runs Australia.
Yeah, of course, Chris. And not long after the mother died, I meant to say this, there was a massive drought, and they were in the sheep industry. So he's been through, the family, a lot of hard times. So I just think that it was really interesting to read that.
Yeah. I haven't seen it. I saw the article, but I didn't read the article. I'd be interested to read it before I leave work today. Interesting. Thank you, Simon. Appreciate it. I'm glad you mentioned it. Alex, go ahead.
Good morning, Chris.
Morning.
Chris, I'd just like to offer a reason why we have trouble to stop these terrorists from coming back into the country.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is, Chris, I believe, just like we deport terrorists from here and other countries do, wherever they went, like Syria and Iraq, if these countries now have some sort of stable government, well, they probably also want to deport these terrorists back to where they come from.
Maybe.
This is why we can't stop it.
Maybe. No, that's not the reason. They're holding them in detention, and I'm talking about both Syria and Iraq. They're holding terrorists in detention, and they're putting them through their own courts. Well, they are in Iraq at least. Why do we have to intervene in any of that? Let justice occur in Iraq, and if that means that they rot in an Iraqi jail for the next 40 years, so be it.
Yeah, well, if that's the case, but if they don't want them there, they can deport them, and they'll just deport them back directly to where they came from.
Especially if they've only got one passport, which is either a citizenship or passport related to Australia. Alex, thank you very much. John has sent me a text message. Says, mate, what an important point David Craig made in that interview. These returning ISIS fighters are the heroes of our Islamic youth. I doubt whether they're the heroes of all of our Islamic youth, but maybe David Craig is right. John says he never thought about that before. It does tell you what kind of power they would have if they came back to Australia and spread their evil philosophies around, doesn't it? Martina wants to talk about Pauline Hanson. Go ahead, Martina.
Hey, Chris.
Yeah, I just wanted to tell you that I really love Pauline Hanson, and I really think that she's the only one at the moment that can lead Australia into the right direction. I saw her live on at Paul Murray's, on the show.
Yeah, 2 nights ago, yep.
Good. Yep, and everything she says, it makes so much sense. So let's put it this way. I'm a walk myself. So 7 years ago, I came to Australia.
Great.
Because I already saw what was happening in Europe. And what I see what's happening now in Europe, I really don't want to happen here in Australia.
What country did you leave to come here?
So my background is Czech. My parents are Czech. But I was born and bred in Berlin, and if you see what just happened recently, and it's not just a once-off, it happens more and more and more.
You mean a terror attack, the one that occurred in Berlin?
Exactly. It's absolutely insane, and I really hope that Australians, we are really so intelligent enough to see what's happening.
Well, our apathy is going to get us in strife. And I believe there was a sense of apathy related to the kind of scrutiny we put on those who spread hate about the Western world and the Jewish community online. And we didn't scrutinise those people enough, and we got what we got in December at Bondi Beach. And it's our apathy, both in terms of the community apathy and government agency apathy, that is going to get us into trouble again.
Yeah, I know. And if you just call a spade, you call it immediately different things. I don't want to say it on the radio, but you can't just say facts anymore. And this is so bad. Like, I don't know. I love her. And I really hope she will get in. And the thing is, I talk to lots of people, and lots of people say, I don't think she's fit enough for office and stuff. Excuse me, what's Elbow doing?
Martina, well said. That may be the question you need to ask yourself when people raise the fact that surely Hanson can't run a government. Maybe that's right. Good on you, Martina. Thank you very much for your call. Let's go to David. He wants to talk about fuel. Go ahead, David.
Good morning, Chris. Admire your program and your opinion.
Thank you.
I felt this morning I just had to phone somebody. I've just got fuel in Taree. Now, I realise the tax is going to hit us with an extra 16 cents a litre at the end of this month.
Well, yeah, it's Monday morning.
Monday morning, yeah. I've just filled up at a mobile service station here at Chatham, just out in Taree. 18.5 a litre, $80.45 a litre, which isn't too bad.
Not bad at all.
Yeah, the Shell service station and the Ampol service station in Taree, they are now charging $2.9 cents.
Oh.
Now, Taree is particular. I can go to Camden Haven up the road here and get fuel for 15 cents $1
cheaper.
Cents cheaper later, and I can go down to Kalungaluk on the highway and get the same discount there. But every time there is a hint of a fuel price rise, both Ampol and Shell in Taree are just fleecing the population.
Yeah, because they put the price up, and then when people need fuel, they look up and go, oh, that's right, the price is going up again, we'll just get fuel now. And so they smudge the borders between when a price is lower and when a price is instantly higher.
Yeah. I remember years ago they used to use the excuse, transport costs, but that's a load of hogwash nowadays.
Well, it's always hard to work out what's at play because, the ACCC's never been able to get to the bottom of it, and I doubt whether any of us can understand it if they can't, find a reason to nail some of these fuel distributors.
Exactly. Does the NRMA have any influence, do you think?
Who knows? Look, they speak loudly, they speak often, they put pressure on them. I don't know whether service stations and groups of service stations act accordingly. I haven't ever seen any evidence of that. They're representing consumers, which is great, but you just wonder how much of an impact they're having on proper governance, and proper governance within that industry. I'm not sure.
Yeah. Well,
Good on you, David. Thank you very much. I want to get to Graham's call. He's been waiting a long time there too. Go ahead, Graham.
How you going, mate?
Good, thank you.
It was about your NDIS you were talking about earlier.
Yeah, and the fact that we're now getting charges laid against those on the inside of the bureaucracy.
It does not surprise me one little bit. The stupidity of when they changed from NDIA to NDIS, so that dates when it was going on, they were given support from the IT people for 30 days. And I'm on the phone to this girl regular trying to sort this stuff out, and she says to me, "Oh, I can't answer that question." I said, "Why is that?" "Because I can't find the bloody answer." I said, "But it's on page so-and-so." "Oh, we don't have page numbers on what papers we got here." Now, how do they expect people to follow what's going on if they don't have a page number?
Sounds pretty basic to me, doesn't it?
Oh, hey, you couldn't believe the stupidity that went on with it.
It must frustrate so many people who are just trying to get a fair go through the NDIS.
When I finished the whole thing, I went to the back of it at one stage to see just what comments were at the very end of it, and it says, try and keep a tally of how long it takes to fill this form in and put that on your form when you're finished. You want to have a guess at how long it took me to fill that form in?
How long?
It took all the help in the world. 23 and a half hours.
Stop. You can't get those 23 and a half hours back in your life, Graham.
Not at all.
No. Oh, what a nightmare.
The stupidity of what they were actually doing with it.
Yeah.
But my pet hate is that you get these IT people come in, they fix it for you or do what you want to do, and the idiots go to their own IT section and say, "Hey, Bob, come and try this for me and see what you think." Instead of going to a different department that has nothing to do with IT and get a true version of where the problems are.
Oh, gee. I tell you what, you're starting to give me a migraine, Graham, with all of that. And 23 and a half hours to fill out any form is 22 and a half hours too long. Thank you very much for your call. Norwegian Cruise Line's balcony flash sale is on now, but you've got to be quick. I warn you, this ends today. You've got to be quick. Don't ignore this. You can book a balcony stateroom or above and enjoy free at sea half price. You don't get half price sales when it comes to cruising because cruising is so popular. So you've got to take advantage of it, and it ends today. For just $28 per person per day, you can enjoy NCL's Ultimate Upgrade Package, which includes premium beverages, specialty dining, excursion credits and Wi-Fi. You can choose from select sailings right across Europe, right around Australia, South Pacific, Asia. The destinations are endless. All up to 50% off. What a deal. Don't wait. Offer ends today. Secure your dream cruise today with a reduced deposit as well. There's never been a better time to look very carefully at their website, ncl.com. Conditions apply. Norwegian Cruise Line. One of our newsroom reader reporters, Hilary Castle, was sent out this morning to record what went on with Australia's E-Safety Commissioner, Julie Inman-Grant. And as you heard in the previous two news bulletins, they're now going to take to court the Telegram messaging platform because of its failure to take action and remove violent content shared by terrorists and their supporters. Hilary, interesting. What is the background of Telegram? Where are they based? And I know that they were formed in 2013 by that Russian-born entrepreneur Pavel Durov, but where are they based and what are the allegations that Julie Inman-Grant is focused on?
So they're based in the UAE, and this has been a 12-month investigation. But Julie Inman-Grant did say that they commenced proceedings in 2024, or investigations in 2024, and they didn't have much luck for about 5 months. But finally they were taken seriously by the company after France also took action against some similar proceedings. Now they've failed to remove publicly posted pro-terror material and other unlawful material after becoming aware of it. There's actually a long list of failures, and also to effectively disrupt and deter the distribution of pro-terror material. And some of this, noted by Julie Inman-Grant, is very disturbing content. including some beheadings from ISIS. And that was up on the platform for 3 months. So a considerable amount of time before they actually did anything about it.
See, when you think of what she has tried to crack down on since she took this job, I would have thought this has got to be one of the most important priorities.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure.
Yeah.
So they're looking at, that if the company if it fails to comply, $54.6 million in civil penalties.
$54.6 million. Wow.
Yeah, that's possible. So this one's a bit of a wait and see. It's going to be a long court battle, I believe. But she did also say that her concerns are around that continued proliferation of that pro-terror material and the potential of it causing, serious harm to Australians.
Okay, here's some of what Julie Inman-Grant had to say.
This action comes at a time when Australia is facing a heightened security environment. Against the fresh backdrop of the Bondi tragedy, the Royal Commission into Anti-Semitism, and ASIO's assessment that Australia's terrorism threat level remains probable, it is more important than ever that digital platforms meet their obligations to protect the Australian community. Australians have the right to expect that services operating and generating revenue in this country are responsible for preventing platforms from being used to spread material that can radicalize, incite violence, and cause real-world harm.
Well, they're based in Dubai, but they're not protected from whatever we want to do to them, nor what the French want to do to them. But they have more than 1 billion users in 66 different languages. They are prolific.
Yeah, it's frightening, that's for sure.
Yeah.
The Commissioner also did say that they've applied to the federal government, going on from this kind of thing, for an online hate code under a broader digital duty of care. So We'll wait and see.
Okay, that sounds like something that needs to be done when we consider that Mike Burgess, the ASIO Director General, has stated recently that online radicalisation is playing an increasing role in investigations before ASIO. Hilary Castle, thank you very much for that. That's Julie Inman-Grant's press conference and her attack today on a subject which I would have thought is far more important to crack down on than many in which she has elected to crack down. Now, I'm a Mudgee fanatic. Love it, especially at this time of the year with its beautiful sunny days and crisp, cool nights. If you're looking for the perfect country escape, you've got to think Mudgee. The friendliness, the service is world-class. They've got world-class wineries too in Mudgee, great restaurants, local markets, stunning country scenery, and you must stay in comfort at a place that I've stayed many times, the Winning Post Motor Inn. With their on-site restaurant, the Charnwood Food and Wine Restaurant, you can relax in boutique luxury accommodation if you prefer at the Horatio. Experience the award-winning wines at the Charnwood Estate Winery, which is connected to the Horatio. Winning Post Motor Inn. Have a look. Get online. Have a look. You can go to the winningpostmotorin.com.au or you can go to the horatio.com.au and see what I'm talking about. You can use Mudgee as a little bit of a destination to go elsewhere. Gulgong, Hill End, Bathurst, Dubbo, Orange, and come back to Mudgee. Spend your days exploring Mudgee as well. It is one of regional Australia's favourite destinations. 13 12 69 to your calls again shortly. But I want to return to energy just briefly. Energy related to the United Kingdom. Comedian Katie Hopkins has travelled to Trump International in Scotland, where she's backing calls to unlock more domestic energy production. Her message is simple. Open the oil and gas fields.
Breaking news here in batshit bonkers Britain and Trump International Scotland, home of the greatest 36, where it was my very great pleasure to welcome Governor Ron DeSantis yesterday. First up, only a piece of paper and the net zero nutters stand between us and getting Jackdaw and Rosebank oil and gas fields open. Now, if you listen to the critics, of course, they'll say it's not worth it. But actually, if Jackdaw opens the gas field, it will provide 6% of all of the UK's requirement for gas this winter. It will provide £1.4 billion into the British economy before the end of this Parliament and 3,500 jobs. It's a no-brainer. And yet we have these net zero nutters, and the latest one, Miata Farnbullough, her parents from Sierra Leone and Liberia, watch the copper in that cabling, lads, making decisions for us. If people wanted to see what you can do up here in Scotland and the North, why don't they come here to Trump International and see what a successful man can do for local people and local businesses? In other news, Andy Burnham, king of casual, turns up at his new pad, number 10 North, with the worst logo anyone's ever seen. When you hear the words devolution, think duplication. It's now going to be massive duplication of everything paid for by the British taxpayer, including king of casual Andy Burnham's private jet to get him up there and back again. And finally, at a time when Ireland looked more united than ever before because they were joined together against a common enemy, the illegal migrants beheading people and stabbing out their eyeballs in the street, all of a sudden, shock, surprise, a bomb might have been found near the Northern Irish border. I mean, call me a conspiracy theorist, but it's almost as if divisiveness is being pushed into the Irish people. I mean, what do I know? I mean, I've only been right about bloody everything for the last 22 years and been thought of as a monster, but now people realise that actually I was telling the truth all along. But like I say, conspiracy theorist, yeah, that's me. That's it here at Trump International, Scotland, home of the greatest 36, batshit bonkers Britain.
There you go. Only been right with everything she's been saying for decades. I love her confidence. I want to return now to this woman, this Melbourne-based filmmaker who decided it was funny to put together that skit on Gina Rinehart. I'm trying to find other words than skit. It wasn't even funny. It was despicable. And the ABC opted to run it. What, did they think it was funny? What a twisted and warped sense of humour they've got. It was for Race Around the World. The woman's name is Kate McGuinness. She actually filmed that graphic description of violence directed at Australia's richest woman. Well, it's also emerged today that Kate McGuinness previously posted a video, which I presume she thought was funny as well, which is almost as gross as what we have played here on the ABC. She decided that on Anzac Day, when the last post was played, that she would film herself twerking. And there's a video online, reportedly captioned, "In memory of those fallen, R.I.P. the diggers, and thanks heaps for your service, XXX. How much more disrespectful do you have to be on a very important day for Australia and Australians? Twerking? Like singing to the tune of the last post. This is the sort of person you're dealing with. And this is the sort of person that is being enabled by producers at the ABC. David, good morning.
Hi, thanks, Chris, for taking my call. I just want to comment about the Anthony Albanese's proposal about the Fair Work Court and how I think it will actually complement the system, the Fair Work system. But I also want to know your view and also what the other listeners' views are, because I know Anthony Albanese wants to get the discussion rolling. There's just the main point that I think that the Fair Work Court would complement the existing Fair Work Commission and everything, because the Fair Work Act is like so legally complicated now, and once it gets to the commissioners who are obviously experts in the field and have always worked in industrial relations their entire careers from either a union or a employer or a government perspective. Now, what the Fair Work Court could do, where it becomes time-consuming and legally costly in terms of representation and interpreting the Act and everything, and all the other factors like the conflict resolution, well, where they have trained magistrates out of the general court system who are not only experiencing workplaces, of course they would be to be a magistrate anyway, but also understanding
Yeah, but hang on, David. Don't you think we have enough courts to handle these disputes? We've got the Arbitration and Conciliation Tribunal, we've got the Fair Work Commission, and we've got the Federal Court. And it's the Federal Court that told the Financial Review, gave some statistics to show that there weren't lengthy delays in these disputes.
Well, where the matter is that if the initial hearing is done where a well-founded, legally sound decision is made before it gets into the complex legal issues that are costing in legal representation and time and misunderstanding and open for interpretation, if they at least have that initial hearing where a well-founded, legally sound decision is made from like an early intervention, like from day one, well, that will not only help speed up the process.
Yeah, but who's to say that that's not going on right now?
Well, the fact of the...
Why do you need to speed it up with a fourth tranche of courts?
Well, if you go to the Fair Work Commission's website and you look at the smorgasbord of claims that people can make, there's hundreds and hundreds of different forms that you can fill out. And some disputes may cross the boundaries of bullying, harassment, unfair dismissal, general protections. And now if they have an initial hearing where all the issues are brought to light, heard by a magistrate, where a decision is made that's legally sound, once it gets into the Commissioner's hands and they actually decide which forms to fill out or what legal representation to get, well, the actual issues are already brought to light before they fill out the wrong form and waste the Commission's time.
Yeah, okay. Look, I think we're oversupplied with courts, we're oversupplied with government, we're oversupplied with bureaucracy. The less we have, the better. The more we have, the more we don't need it, David, because it's a huge cost for every court system that's set up. There are hundreds and hundreds of bureaucrats and public servants that have to be employed to look after the judges, to look after the prosecutors, to look after all sorts of documentation and archive technology. It is a monster bureaucracy he's forming here.
Well, where John Howard was correct in exactly what you're saying, it's always better for the employees and the employers to create a relationship and get on with each other. But say, for instance, if it doesn't happen, that, there's misunderstandings and miscommunication and personality clashes and parties just can't get on anymore, well, where the people can police themselves with the Fair Work Court, whether they bring in legal representation or a lawyer, but at least it will be heard by a magistrate where a legally sound, well-founded decision can be made to actually attempt to resolve the conflict on the...
Yeah, okay. All right, David, you can support this addition to the Fair Work dispute system. I don't think we need it, and neither does the Federal Court, as they told the Australian Financial Review today. Lynette, good morning to you.
Good morning. Yes, you just gave Mudgee a very good plug, and which was right in what you were saying. But it's time Mudgee had a decent public toilet put in place.
There's no public toilets in the centre of Mudgee?
Well, there is one outside where the Coles shopping centre is, but it's disgusting.
In what way is it disgusting? It's just run down, or is it not looked after and maintained?
Not looked after and maintained.
Oh.
The people who own those buildings have been spoken to, but they do nothing about it. And then there's another one where there's a walk-through where you go up to Woolworths, and sometimes that one is just locked.
Right.
Yeah.
Something needs to be done. Some of those councillors in the Mudgee Shire Council need to take heed of your push for better toilets, Lynette.
Yes, and a lot of other things too.
Like what?
Well, a woman that lives across the road from me, they allowed her to come over and put plants on the bank in front of my place. She looked after it for a couple of years and then it was left and it became a fire hazard. Well, it took a long time, but the council did come and clean it all up. I had a few run-ins with the council over that. Why does the council let people cross the road and do what they want to?
Yes. Well, I'm all for this. You should be running for council, Lynette, and get this done directly.
Yeah, I should be, but I'm a bit old in the tooth for that.
Never too old, never too old. Thank you very much, Lynette. I'll keep that in my little Mudgee file, and we'll deal with it at another stage. Now, I can give you a little bit more information about this federal Labor MP, Luke Gosling. He's been arrested over the alleged assault of Northern Territory Administrator David Connolly at a community festival in Darwin earlier this month. Northern Territory Police said the federal member for Solomon, aged 54, was arrested yesterday morning over an incident allegedly involving the administrator on July 18. Police said the investigation began last week and Gosling remained in custody yesterday. The alleged incident was previously reported to have occurred during the Northern Territory Thailand Grand Festival in Darwin, where both men took part in official proceedings. So they're officially launching the Grand Festival in Darwin and then end up in a punch-up. Gosling posted photos from the event on his social media that day. He didn't post anything of the fisticuffs. Gosling, who has held the Darwin base since 2016, had previously rejected the allegations, describing them as ridiculous and saying he had no dealings with Connolly. After the allegations emerged, a spokesman for Connolly said that an incident occurred during his honour, the administrator's official attendance at a community event, but declined further comment while police investigated. The administrator is the King's representative in the Northern Territory, performing a role equivalent to the state governor. So the allegation is he whacked the state governor. What possessed him to do that, if, of course, it occurred? So he's arrested and no doubt charges will be laid. Bev, good morning.
Good morning, Chris. Look, I'm sorry to butt in, but there are clean toilets right next to Woolworths in Mudgee.
Are they the same toilets that the previous caller was mentioning, or are they different?
No, she said the ones at the back of Coles, which are disgusting. But there are clean ones right next to Woolworths, right where you walk in to go into the shop.
Right.
They're in the shopping centre there. There's clean toilets there. And the library has toilets.
Right.
There are toilets down in Robertson Park that are usually pretty clean as well.
Okay, all right. That's worth noting. Let's be fair in this debate about bad dunnies in Mudgee, eh?
Yeah. I mean, I think they probably need a good mother's room, but there are clean toilets.
Okay, good on you. Thank you, Bev. I appreciate that. I tell you what, this underworld drama in Sydney is just getting more gruesome by the week. A corrective services officer is accused of leaking the personal details of underworld figures information police believe may have linked to 2 gangland shootings. Court documents, according to the Telegraph today, allege the employee accessed restricted prison records belonging to 16 inmates, including organised crime figures and people accused of serious offences, before selling the information for cash. Police allege she charged a price for details, including inmates' names and addresses, with detectives uncovering evidence during a separate organised crime investigation. An audit allegedly showed the same employee had accessed all 16 profiles. The woman has been charged with 17 offences, including misconduct in public office and accessing restricted data. Police say the case reveals concerns around trusted insiders leaking sensitive information that could fuel gang violence. If these people were killed, should she not be charged also with conspiracy to murder? She wasn't giving those underworld characters the names and addresses so that they could have a beer together. Interesting. I wonder whether those more serious charges will be laid. Now, if you've got a home loan with an offset account, and they are the vast majority of home loans being sold by banks at the moment, a home loan with an offset account, ASIC is urging you to check that it's actually working. Now, the corporate watchdog has revealed more than 250,000 Australians have been overcharged a combined $55 million after banks failed to correctly link offset accounts to home loans. Now, offset accounts work so if you throw your income, for instance, or some income into an account which is linked to your home loan, it reduces the outstanding amount regularly. You know, you take the money out, but for a short time during the pay cycle, that money is left in the main account, which takes off the interest owed. So it's a clever way to run a mortgage. And I've done it most of my life when mortgages have arisen. ASIC says the problem spans 8 major lenders, including ANZ, the Commonwealth Bank, Westpac and Macquarie, with the compensation bill expected to rise. ASIC Chair Sarah Court says banks are getting the basics wrong, warning poor record keeping means some lenders may not even know how many customers have been affected, so they don't know who they're dudded. They don't actually know who they're dudded and how many of them. Borrowers are being urged to check their banking app or contact their bank to make sure their offset account is correctly linked and reducing the interest on their home loan. Now, because of the publicity on this over the past 12 hours, you can bet that they will know exactly what you're referring to when you pick up the telephone to ask the question. They'll know exactly what you're referring to because they're in deep caca and customers deserve much better service. On this day, way back, 1967, I was just a whippersnapper. Louis Armstrong recorded what was his most incredible song. It was a very short song, which meant it got terrific radio play right around the world, and it became the big number one of that year. This is Louis Armstrong. It's still brilliant, isn't it, as a piece of music? Still brilliant in 2026, despite being made into a super hit in 1967. Owen is on our open line. Go ahead, Owen.
Yeah, how you going, Chris?
Couldn't be better.
I just want to see if there are other people out there that feel the same way I do. I want to know why, with Victorian politicians, like starting with Bill Shorten, he goes away when the NCIS is in a mess. Then the Premier before, Jacinta Allen, he's gone because he stuffed up the Commonwealth Games. And now Jacinta Allen's gone. What, was she too scared to take on the corruption in the building industry? Like, I just can't figure it out why they keep just going when it's too hot in the kitchen for them.
Well, it's going to get a lot hotter in the kitchen, Owen, because if you read what I read on the front page of The Australian, this new Premier is very, very keen to put Dan Andrews and Jacinta Allen and any other number of ministers and bureaucrats in the witness box at a Royal Commission into the big build. So the fun and games are yet to begin, mate.
Well, what about we put a KPI on him, Chris, in 6 months and see if he's performed what he said he was going to do?
Or he's full of it. Yeah, well, he's got until November. The likelihood is he won't even be the Premier to instigate a Royal Commission, but you can bet that the Liberal Party will be calling one.
Well, I want to know, if we select a Prime Minister to run the country, why can't they step in and do something about it?
Because the CFMEU are one of their biggest donors.
God, it's just a joke, Chris, a real joke.
Yeah, it's a sad joke. Good on you, Owen. Thank you very much for that. We will take a break, get a news update for you. On the other side, I'm going to talk to a neuroscientist about a big launch today related to the reduction in the onset of Alzheimer's disease and maybe even implications for dementia as well. We'll look at that right after this.
This is Sydney's 1269 2SM.
Super Radio Network News Update, brought to you by Norwegian Cruise Line. Norwegian Cruise Line's balcony flash sale is now on.
Diane Comedy-Garland has got the latest. What's happening?
Thank you, Chris. Police remain at the scene of a fire which claimed 3 lives in Sydney's southwest. The New South Wales government's considering a feasibility-led model to solve the housing shortage, and Corey Jensen has medically retired from the Broncos after suffering a blood clot in his lungs. We'll have those stories and more at the top of the hour.
Good on you. Thank you very much for that, Diane. Now, for decades, Alzheimer's has often been diagnosed only after symptoms appear. But a new breakthrough could change all of this. Blood tests could now detect signs of the disease up to 20 years before those symptoms emerge. Wouldn't you love to know 20 years before the onset of Alzheimer's that it could be coming, and then take advantage of what needs to be done to delay the onset of Alzheimer's? A new specialist centre in Sydney will become the first in Australia to process these cutting-edge blood tests, aiming to close the gap between when Alzheimer's begins and when people actually receive a diagnosis. Joining us now is neurologist Associate Professor Emma Davini from Neuroscience Research Australia. Emma, Dr. Davini, I should say, thank you so much for joining us, and what a terrific positive day this is for this disease.
You're very welcome, Chris. Yeah, this is a brave new world full of hope.
How long has this been in the works? Like, these things go on for years and years, don't they?
Oh, this work has been going on for decades. You know, it's been the accumulation of tens of thousands of scientists and, you know, patients given their samples. So it's been such a long time in the making.
So how does a blood test detect that you could get the onset of Alzheimer's 20 years ahead? How do you work that out?
So in Alzheimer's disease, there are two key abnormal proteins. They're called amyloid and tau, and they're deposited abnormally in your brain. What this new blood test, which is called phosphorylated tau 217, does is it can detect that amyloid pathology in the blood. So I should say at the moment it will be used for early diagnosis. So in people who have signs, people who have symptoms like very early memory changes or navigational problems, it will be used to help confirm the diagnosis.
So if you're getting that indication earlier, what can be done to delay the onset?
So I think, you know, if you're starting to develop memory symptoms, you're sort of beginning to struggle maybe functionally at work and things like that, then as you know, ideally we want to intervene as early as possible, but we know the sooner we intervene, the better, because as soon as symptoms begin and as they progress, we lose brain cells. We can't get them back.
Can't get them back, right.
We can't get them back. So the sooner we intervene, we're not at a place yet where we can use these tests to screen the population. So for someone to go to their GP and say, will I get dementia in 20 years? We just don't have enough information yet to be able to identify people's exact risk. But that will come in time as we learn more about how this blood test performs in the Australian population.
So treating someone who may lose brain cells down the track, how does that happen? How do you stop that happening?
So what we're trying to do is stop the pathology or the changes that are happening in the brain that cause the death of brain cells. So currently there are therapies available. We've got two new therapies available this year that actually what they do is they remove one of those abnormal proteins, the amyloid that I mentioned. So that's one approach that's being taken, but there are many, many other approaches as well. There's over 200 drugs currently in clinical trials for Alzheimer's disease, targeting these different abnormal proteins, some of them targeting inflammation. There's even vaccinations in clinical trials to prevent someone even developing Alzheimer's disease.
Right, so there's so much of an advantage to be accrued and taken advantage of if you know early.
If you know early, absolutely. And it's the treatment side is one thing, but also it's giving people the opportunity to use their time the way they want to use it, not to spend years trying to find out what the diagnosis is, but actually if they find out early, they can plan for the future. They can do all those things with their families, you know, that maybe they've been putting off. So it really empowers people, empowers families as well.
And how does it impact those with dementia?
The person themselves by finding out early. Look, you know, there is a lot of stigma attached to a diagnosis of dementia. But the more work we do in this space, the more we educate people, educate the community about the importance of an early diagnosis, and I think we can change that. And often our patients will be, you know, it's almost a relief when they get the diagnosis because they know there's something wrong.
Yeah.
You know, and it's almost like, well, at least now I know what it is. And you know, when people take that power back, then it's much, much easier for them to deal with what comes their way.
It's a great positive thing. And, you know, it's probably 10 years away, but in 10 years' time, we will be able to go to the GP, no doubt, and say, I want to test for Alzheimer's or dementia, please. Can you just put it through Medicare and off we go?
I hope so. And you know what? I hope at that point in time we'll be able to say, well, okay, your test is positive. Here's the treatment. Here's the preventative
treatment. Yeah, and better treatment than what we know of now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Emma Devaney, thank you very much for your time, and this is a terrific positive step in the treatment of Alzheimer's disease. Thank you.
Very welcome, Chris. Thank you.
Okay, neurologist, Associate Professor Emma Devaney from Neuroscience Research Australia. That is promising. You know, medical research, it takes a long time. We know all about that. Charlie Teo talks about it all the time, about how to stop tumours and brain disease and cancer, all that sort of thing. It does take a long time, but eventually something just clicks into place and all of a sudden the treatment of these diseases are better, quicker, more effective. And in this case, that's an incredible breakthrough, which is great. Ray, go ahead.
Hi, Chris. How you going?
Good, thank you.
Talking about this new law court or
the Fair Work Court that they announced at the ALP National Conference.
Well, to me, it's a total waste of time. I was unfortunate that I had to actually take my employer for unfair dismissal a few years ago. But fortunately, I was a supervisor at the time, and he'd actually sort of sold me a few times, oh, look, watch this guy, you never know what he's going to be doing and all that sort of thing. So I was sort of pretty well aware of his methods and stuff like that. So anyhow, I got dismissed unfairly, well, I thought unfairly, and I'd actually been documenting a few bits and pieces before that happened about, his attitudes had changed and all that. And I documented it all, and I actually took him to the unfair dismissal, whatever it was, the commission, my own. I didn't employ a lawyer or...
So where did you go? Fair Work Commission? No.
I think it was probably Fair Work Commission, yeah.
Yeah, go on.
And I documented it all, made a claim and all that sort of thing to the paperwork and all that. And I did it all myself. It wasn't sort of, I'm not a lawyer or anything. I was a bit of a machinist by trade. But anyhow, so I documented all this, got a date, and turned up to the court. And anyhow, this he was only he's younger than me at the time. And bounced in with this young, good-looking young lawyer and all that sort of thing, and sat down and. He actually presented his case, which is good. And then I presented my case, and my documents was probably, 20 or 30 pages, I suppose, of different things. And the commission said, yes, I'd read your report, and he said it was the most thorough thing that I've ever seen ever presented to me for an unfair dismissal case.
Wow.
He said, and he turned to the guy, and he says to this guy, he said, mister, he said, you are the worst boss I've ever come across. He said, this guy has worked hard for you, did all these sorts of things, even paid for his own medical. I hurt my shoulder, pulled a muscle in my elbow, actually, doing some work, and even doing paid for his own physiotherapy and all that because you weren't interested in workers' comp. And anyhow, so in the end, the commission said, well, okay, off you go. I'll give you some time to go and remediate. And I actually claimed for 6 months pay. And anyhow, we got into this room and talked with this guy, and they said, "Oh yeah, okay. Well, we'll give you 4 weeks pay." I said, "No."
4 weeks. You wanted 6 months. You should have got 6 months.
Yeah, should have got 6 months. Anyhow, we sort of went through this way, and it kept going. And I said, in the end, I said, "I'll tell you what. I don't want to be here all day. Whatever it is, I've already taken time off work because I was back working again." And I said, "I'll tell you what. I'll settle for 5 months for the loss of pay, but I also want to claim because I actually had a company car at the time I was working, and they come and collected that from me at home and left me without a car. So anyhow, I sort of I said, and I'll work at it somehow. I'll claim for this much petrol and car insurance for my having to get another car." What's that? I worked it out. It was actually would have made equivalent of 7 months' pay. So in the end, I conceded and said, "No, we'll get 6 months." Anyhow, I went back and seen the commission. The commission said, "Oh, so you're quite happy with this, Mr.?" I said, "Yes." I said, "As a matter of fact, that's exactly what I wanted and all that sort of thing. I just don't want this guy to be doing this to other people and stuff like that." So anyhow, I won the case. This guy went tail between his legs out the court with his U-boot-looking solicitor and all that. But I did it all on my own. So it can be done. And it was really not that much time, probably about, 5 or 6 months I had to wait to get into the commission.
Well, this is interesting because it was the Prime Minister who said that they needed a Fair Work court because workers were waiting 1 or 2 years to get underpayment cases finalised in the courts.
No, didn't take me less than 6 months.
And then add to that what the Federal Circuit Court has said today is that it insists it already has the legal expertise to handle workplace disputes because their data contradicts what the unions are claiming. There are no lengthy delays for workplace claims used to justify a new Fair Work court. This was just a gift to the union movement by the Prime Minister.
Yeah, and of course I heard that, that some of these people are going to be union representatives, are going to be on this thing.
Oh, well, there was another article that was suggested that it would be stacked, and there's every reason to say that it will be stacked. It's a little bit like the administrative tribunal that deals with refugee claims. Well, we often find that is stacked with previously former refugee advocates.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And again, this is what I'm saying. So it's just more jobs for the union guys who've never done a job in their life other than being union reps.
Congratulations for your efforts, Ray. It can be done. Good on you.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks, Steve. Bye.
Good on you. You could call me Chris too if you wanted to. We've now got a case of this bird flu in Victoria, Channel 9 is reporting. As you may know, there are currently 27 confirmed H5 cases across Australia. Well, there's now 28, and it's crossed a border. It's in Victoria. Authorities say there is no risk to people from eating chicken or eggs, with human cases rare and most likely to people handling infected animals. But it hasn't actually got into the food production area as yet. When it does that, that's when the alert will be sounded loudly, because that will therefore mean a lack of food supply and higher prices for what is supplied. But it's actually crossed into wild birds for the first time, as we reported in our news yesterday, but now a case in Victoria. I started this program this morning talking about the hit on Gina Rinehart. And understandably, the callers today have overwhelmingly supported Gina Rinehart and castigated the ABC, as they rightly deserve. Well, this is ironic. A press release has been issued about an hour ago from the Rinehart camp. It doesn't mention anything about the subject at hand, but it does mention this. Australia's medal-winning swimmers and para-swimmers will share in $1,272,500 in bonuses, courtesy of the swimmers' patron Gina Rinehart and Hancock Prospecting, after an outstanding medal haul at the Glasgow Commonwealth Games. As of today, of the 47 golds won so far, the swim team earned 36 medals. Of the 21 silvers won so far, the swim team earned 16 medals. And of the 35 bronze medals won so far, the swim team earned 23 medals. Of the total medals of 103 so far, the swim team achieved 75 of these medals. These rewards are available across the sports Mrs. Rinehart is patron of: swimming, artistic swimming and rowing. Athletes who receive multiple medals will be rewarded for each and every medal earned. Payments will be made directly into athletes' accounts within 2 weeks of the game's ending, pending confirmation of updated banking details. Mrs. Rinehart and Hancock Prospecting have supported swimming for more than 3 decades. That's interesting, isn't it? And yet she cops the most foul, gross attack green-lighted by producers at the ABC. Happy birthday if you've got one today. I hope you have a really good evening, maybe afternoon. You share it with Catherine Bush. Yeah, Kate Bush, born on this day in 1958. She's 68. Remember this from 1985? Hope you enjoyed the program today. We'll be back to do it one more time for this week. A big program planned for tomorrow as well. Don't miss it.